Please place your mobile phone on silent or vibrate during the proceedings. Open session would like to call the meeting to order and establish that a quorum is present. And it is. So we have consent agenda. The commission may request for a consent agenda item to be moved to the regular agenda for presentation and discussion. Otherwise, the consent agenda will be considered in one vote. All items of the consent agenda have been recommended for approval by staff with no opposition received to date. Since some items on the consent agenda require a public hearing, the commission will accept public comment on any item on the consent agenda in one public hearing. I would like to pull item B, the second replat to Block 2, Arden Estates, Section 3, and add that to the regular agenda. Is there any other items that need to be pulled? Okay. We'd open it to public comment on these consent agenda. If there's anyone wishing to speak. Okay. Seeing none, would ask for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and second to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. 1, 2, 3, 6, 0 on that. So the regular agenda, we're going to start with the second replat in Block 2, Arden Estates, Section 3, which is a request to approve the second replat in Block 2, Arden Estates, Section 3, being 11.819 acres.
Thank you, Ms. Chairman, or Vice Chair. I apologize, I don't have a map of the area, but I know that you're all very familiar with this area. The applicant has asked to pull it because he wants confirmation that staff had agreed to defer sidewalks to the building permit stage. And as you noticed in your staff report, that is what staff had recommended, but I know he would like to address that. So
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you. Open it for public comment.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Steve Eustace, and I'm one of the owners of this property seeking this plat. I just wanted to confirm, and actually I think we got an email from Mitchell this morning saying they've agreed to defer service connection. I just want to confirm that is both water and sewer, and defer drainage study. But I also want to request that we defer sidewalk design and construction to the permitting stage. And I think that's it. He did say in the email too that the drainage study, in case I didn't mention that a while ago. So deferring water sewer taps, deferring the drainage study, and deferring sidewalks.
Okay.
Be happy to answer any questions.
Do you have any questions for Mr. Eustace? No. Okay.
Good morning, Planning Commissioners. Mitchell Gallen, Engineering. Did want to confirm that an email was sent this morning granting deferral of the drainage study and the water and sewer service connections. That is confirmed.
Okay, and the sidewalks, are they included on that
That's
too?
not normally an engineering decision. You know, we work in conjunction with planning, so I'll let Sherry talk on that.
Okay. Okay, so we have that deferral also. Okay. Is there any further public comment? If not, we'll close public comment and open for discussion.
I'd make a motion to approve, subject to deferral of sidewalks, water and sewer, and drainage.
Okay.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. 6-0. Okay. Okay, and then our preliminary plat, the Shops of Sherwood subdivision, has been pulled until July 17th. So we'll move down to item B, which is second replat of Block 2, Old Christoval Road, Industrial Park, Section 2. a request for approval of a second replat of Block 2, Old Christoval Road, Industrial Park, Section 2, being 7.353 acres, located at 4125 Dan Hanks Lane, and a variance from Chapter 10.3.8.2 of the Land Development and Subdivision Ordinance to maintain a paving width of 24 foot without curb and gutter in lieu of the required 50 foot with curb and gutter for Dan Hanks Lane and Urban Collector Street.
Thank you, Vice Chair Jackson, Planning Commissioners. Jeff Frischer, Principal Planner. Our next case is a second replat of Block 2 in the Old Christoval Road Industrial Park subdivision at 7.353 acres at the southeast of Christoval Road and South Chadburn Street, Tommy Hebert District 1, Glenmore neighborhood. So this is a replat of a tract E, which is a full tract, and then 2 remainder tracts in that subdivision. They're combining into one and looking at future development. This is for an oil field company. You all had reviewed the zone change request a few months back. That has gone through first reading at City Council on June 15th and will go to second reading on July the 8th. So this is the associated plat to go with the zoning. So this will be, the 3 tracts will be combined into one. They have frontage on Dan Hanks Lane. They have requested a variance to allow Dan Hanks Lane to remain 24 feet wide. This is a collector street that normally requires 50, so half of that 50 would be 25 feet on one side. This is a unique situation, so staff is in support of the variance, given that when all of these lots on the west side of Dan Hanks were platted, that street is entirely on their incremental half. So in essence, it's really a 1-foot variance. Staff's rationale to approve, it conforms with the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan is industrial, so that supported the rezoning to MH, which I mentioned passed first reading on June 15th. Also, it conforms with the intent of purpose statements. The replat will consolidate the 3 tracts into one for ease of development. The existing street width, staff believes, will function adequately, and there is a 20-foot underground utility easement provided to encompass the existing water main. So staff's rationale for the variance is mentioned. So the 24 feet is essentially all on one side of the street. This would have been a problem if, like most streets, it was 24 feet at the center line, so you'd have 12 and 12. They'd have to widen another 12 feet. But in essence, the 24 feet of the incremental 25 is already on their side of the street. The paving is unique in this sense. There's no particular hardship, but the street serves adequately. No significant variation of the city ordinances would be required if the variance was granted. Staff recommends approval of the second replat of Block 2, Old Christoval Road, Industrial Park Section 2, subject to the 2 conditions of approval in your staff report. So number 1 is the payment of taxes, and then number 2, if you support the variance, this condition will go away. If not, per our standard requirement, they'll have financial guarantee to construct the additional width within 3 years, or they can obtain the variance today. Any questions or comments?
Any questions for staff? Okay. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
We'll open this for public comment at this time, please. Anyone wishing to speak?
Good morning. My name's Amy Zetzman. I'm here to represent SMC. I just wanted to let y'all know I'm here if y'all have any questions or concerns, or if anyone from the public does as well.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments? Okay, seeing none, we'll close public comment. Open for discussion.
Move to approve as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, 6-0. We have Ortiz subdivision, Section 1, a request for approval of Ortiz subdivision, Section 1, being 0.500 acres, located at 302 East 14th Street with variances from Chapter 10.3.8.2 of the Land Development and Subdivision Ordinance to maintain a paving width of 40 foot in lieu of the required 50-foot for East 14th and Urban Collector Street, and to maintain a paving width of 36 feet with curb and gutter in lieu of the required 40-foot or 36-foot with a 4-foot sidewalk with curb and gutter for Bryan Street and Urban Local Street, and to maintain a paving width of 30-foot with curb and gutter in lieu of the required 40-foot or 36-foot with a 4-foot sidewalk with curb and gutter for East 15th Street and Urban Local Street, and to maintain a paving width of 30-foot with curb and gutter in lieu of the required 40-foot or 36-foot with a 4-foot sidewalk with curb and gutter for Pecan Street and Urban Local Street.
Good job.
Thank you. It's a tongue twister.
Sherry Bailey, Principal Planner, and I wanted to put this on the agenda because I did think it would be kind of fun to go through all of that. But this is a unique piece of property, and because of that, I wanted to bring it forward rather than have it on the consent calendar. But it is the last piece of property in that general area that is still an abstract. It has never been platted. And the area itself is built out significantly. All of the streets are in, the curb and gutter is on the streets. 14th is built to the actual width that is necessary. Bryant and 15th and Pecan are all developed streets, although they do need variances because of the size of the pavement. The applicant in this case does live on that piece of property. She wanted to pull a building permit for a carport, and because it had never been platted, she had to plat the piece of property. And as you can see from the plat that is proposed, it does have the right-of-way that fronts on East 14th, but all of the other property lines, we are not asking for any additional right-of-way because it is all in alignment with the existing street and the existing right-of-way that is there. We looked at all three of the allowed variances request, and in staff's opinion, all of the variances that are requested could fit into any one of those categories because it is literal enforcement would be an issue, and definitely a problem for the applicant and for the city. Special circumstances, this is, as I indicated, a unique piece of property, and there's definitely an overriding public interest in keeping the streets at the same width, the pavement at the same width that they are now, since they're already developed out. And there's no chance that the city is going to pick up any additional right-of-way in the future. So looking at that and examining all of the issues, we feel that disturbing the interaction of how those streets come together at this point in time and changing the paving widths for that very short piece of distance for this one lot just does not make sense and would contribute to a very dangerous situation. So in looking at the analysis for all of them, as I indicated, this is a unique piece of property. It's the last piece of an abstract in a very large area. And I thought that was worth noting once more. So staff is recommending approval of the plat and to approve the requested four variances subject to 4 conditions of approval. And essentially, those are granting the variance for each one of the streets that normally we would have required either some additional right-of-way or paving widths. So staff is in agreement that all 4 variances should be granted. Are there any questions?
No, ma'am. Thank you. Open it for public comment if there's anyone wishing to speak on this case.
Jack Downey with SKG Engineering, and if there's any questions, I'd be glad to answer those.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay, seeing none, we'll close for discussion.
I'll motion to approve as presented.
Okay,
Second.
we have a motion and a second to approve as presented. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, 6-0. Moving to the related comprehensive plan amendments and rezoning, City Council has final authority for approval of compensation plan amendments and rezonings. Our first case is 333, 404, and 412 Prizer Street. And we have CP 2103, which is 404 and 412 Prizer Street, request for an amendment to the City of San Angelo Comprehensive Plan, changing certain lands from the neighborhood to the commercial future land use on the subject property located at 404 and 412 Prizer Street. And then Z 21-07, 333, 404, and 412 Prizer Street, a request for approval of a rezoning from the low-rise multifamily residential RM1 zoning district to the office commercial CO zoning district, being 0.880 acres at 404, 412, and 3, this says 331, but it should be 333, shouldn't it?
It's known as both addresses, so
Okay, AKA 333 and 331 Prizer Street.
thank you. This should look familiar to you. You did hear this last month, and you did vote unanimously to recommend approval. However, as we were going through the project and getting ready to carry it forward to City Council, we did note that there were 2 properties that inadvertently did not get noticed. And because of that, we brought it back for an abbreviated presentation and action, just to be on the safe side. And so those properties, one was down immediately adjacent to the apartment complex and part of the apartment complex, and the other one was at the corner going east on Prizer. So again, this is a comprehensive plan amendment. It goes from neighborhood to commercial and a rezoning to office commercial. It's in District 3, Mr. Thomas's district, and it's in the Fort Concho East neighborhood. And this is the revised notification map. You will notice, last time we had the green star on the map, but you will notice this time that there is a red star. That was not one of the people that was not noticed before. But this gentleman did send in a notice that he objected, and it was not that he was objecting to this particular request or to the ongoing business that is there. But his concern, and I left a copy in front of you, his concern is about slow encroachment of commercial into the residential district, and he does not want to lose that residential district. And I think from staff's standpoint, the most conservative commercial that we could go to, the one that allowed the least ingrowth into the residential, was the office commercial. It does not allow retail in there. It was very conservative, but it would allow exactly what is already going on there, and that the office commercial is a zoning that they have done on their other piece of property, and this is all consistent. And so with that, staff is again recommending approval of the comprehensive plan amendment to go from neighborhood to commercial for the property at 404 and 412 Prizer, and to approve the rezoning from low-rise residential to office commercial for the properties at 333, 404, and 412 Prizer. Are there any questions? All right. Thank you.
Motion to approve is presented.
Second.
And that's for both items?
Yes, that's correct.
My microphone's off. Okay, I'm back. So we have a motion and a second to approve as presented. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. We have 5702 Melrose Avenue, CP 2104, 5702 Melrose Avenue, a request for approval of an amendment to the City of San Angelo Comprehensive Plan, changing certain lands from commercial future land use to neighborhood center future land use, being 20.432 acres located at 5702 Melrose Avenue, and PD 2102, 5702 Melrose Avenue, a request for approval of a rezoning from the Planned Development PD 02-03 zoning district, which allowed general commercial uses on approximately 30 acres to a planned development PD 2102 zoning district to allow for a multifamily housing complex comprised of a single-family dwellings on 20.432 acres located at 5702 Melrose Avenue.
Thank you, Vice Chair Jackson. Planning Commission, Jeff Fisher again, Principal Planner. Our next case is combined cases. We're going to do one presentation. This is a comprehensive plan amendment and a rezoning, CP 2104 and PD 2102, 5702 Melrose Avenue. The subject property in the aerial photo is 20.432 acres. That's at the northeast of Houston Hart Expressway frontage road and Melrose Drive. So it's just east of the new HEB in District 6, Miller and the Bluffs neighborhood. The future land use right now is commercial, and the current zoning is PD 0203. So quick background on this. Y'all had looked at this and approved a conditional use back in 2019 for a multifamily housing complex on this location. What made this unique is they're small, they're not tiny homes and they're not huge mansions or something kind of in between, but they're essentially single-family homes operated under a single management structure. So they're rentals, but they're part of that structure. And so the PD at that time was kind of silent on it, so we were able to do a conditional use. What brought this back was, as staff was looking at the final building, some of the phases were under construction, we noticed a 6-foot tall fence in the front yard. The underlying zoning only allows a 4-foot tall front yard fence. So they came back to the Planning Commission as part of their urban design review, and y'all had recommended denial. So we talked to the applicant and kind of working together, believed that the PD was really the best opportunity for them to allow a taller fence. Staff is recommending approval today, but with certain conditions, essentially that the fence is pushed back. So I'll go over that in a minute. So 22 notices were mailed out. We also put up a sign. There were no responses in support or in opposition to the request. So this is the current view of the fence. So the fence was built, I'm not going to go over this too much because most of y'all were here last month at when we brought the appeal for the urban design review. Some of you weren't. So they built a 6-foot high fence right against the sidewalk at the property line. And then there is a utility box there that kind of juts back. So that distance is 7 feet, and then measured from the front property line itself is 10 feet. So staff is, now that we've talked to the applicant is here to answer any questions, we're comfortable moving forward with certain conditions on the PD, and that the fence at the front of the sidewalk essentially gets pushed back to where that jog is. So behind the utility box, it would be all the way across like that. So these are a couple of the views. Now, in addition to this, as I said, the conditional use already approves the multifamily housing complex, but since it has to go through a PD in order to allow the taller fence, we thought this would be a second opportunity for staff and y'all to look at the PD as well and make sure that they're meeting their standards. So they do have some 4-foot internal fences here and some green spaces, landscaping in the front. These are some more of the pictures. And they've kind of have a different color scheme as you go through each row, so that hasn't changed. All of that was approved through the urban design review, just so you have a picture of it. So it's a pretty large development. It's 255 dwelling units, so this is the north part. One of the changes that the applicant in addition to the fencing, is removal of some of the internal sidewalk connections. So the areas that you see here in red, kind of cut down the middle. Staff was okay with that as long as they keep the sidewalks kind of coming around the ring road here to get to, and the reason for that is there's a dog park, barbecue area, there's a swimming pool and amenity center. So as you go further south, you can see there's the pool and the amenity center, and then there's the barbecue area. So just having some sidewalk connections are important. So you're still gonna have the sidewalks along the outside, the sidewalk along Melrose, and then this sort of cross sidewalk that runs east-west that'll get everybody from over here into these common amenity areas, and the same thing over here. So we think that's a reasonable compromise. So essentially, it's just the areas internal here. I think that's kind of, as I said, maybe the best solution, and that way these people that live here don't have a sidewalk immediately next to them. So we are recommending approval for this. I won't spend too much time on this because we already approved the conditional use. Staff did initiate a comp plan amendment with the rezoning for neighborhood center. We wanted to clean that up. There was some very strong language back 20 years ago when they did the PD that we didn't really want that area to be commercial, but City Council had supported that. We only wanted the property right against Houston Hard and not where they're located. So neighborhood center is just a more low density type of designation that would support some small scale retail, but also supports multifamily. So this is just a better fit. No change on the zoning other than the fence. Everything that the RM1 underlying zoning standards that we approved with the conditional use are still going to remain. So they'll have all the other setbacks met. They've got adequate parking. It's just essentially moving the fence back 10 feet. It's compatible with the surrounding area. This is a good transition. Once you get into the bluffs, as you all know, you go further north, it's really low density single family. But then once you start getting towards Houston Hard, it's high intensity commercial. So the multifamily is a good transition as you're driving into to Melrose and the Bluffs neighborhood. The only change condition was the fence. So again, we're in support of the request as long as the developer moves the fence back. And that's 10 feet from the front property line and then 7 feet from the sidewalk because the sidewalk encroaches 3 feet into the property. No adverse effects on the natural environment. Y'all may be familiar with this, but similar with our 2019 case and the conditional use, that Rezonings study that COSA DC had published, that does support more multifamily and not so much apartment buildings, but something like this, just small scale, managed by a developer. And then development patterns. Most of the traffic's going to come in from Houston Hard, so they shouldn't be cutting through the neighborhood too much. Again, that hasn't changed from last time. Staff recommends approval of the amendment to the City of San Angelo Comprehensive Plan, changing from the commercial future land use to neighborhood center, and then approval of a rezoning from the Plan Development PD 0203, which, by the way, will still apply to the 10 acres to the south. So it's just for the subject property. So if they want to do retail commercial against Houston Hard, they can still do that. But this new PD 2102 will allow multifamily housing consisting of single-family dwellings being 20.432 acres located at 5702 Melrose and subject to the 5 conditions of approval. So the first is just outlining the uses. So most of this is very consistent with the conditional use. We just added a couple things. So again, it's a multifamily housing complex comprised of single-family dwellings. We just wanted to spell out it includes indoor, outdoor amenity areas just to give the developer some flexibility. If he wanted to come back with a minor PD amendment later, a new site plan, he could add another amenity building on that plan. Includes management and administrative offices and parking, maintenance facilities, etc. Otherwise specified or limited below the RM1 zoning standards, which it already meets except for the fence. All lighting, if provided, shall be fully shielded. We've already approved through the urban design review the lighting fixtures, so that's, again, this is just spelling out what's already been approved. Fencing in the front yard adjacent to Melrose may be located within the front yard setback, but shall be no closer than 10 feet from the front property line. Technically, he could move it back even further, but I think that's a reasonable compromise at 10 feet. That still gives about 15 or 20 feet of a backyard for those homes that are closest to Melrose, and then gives the city the opportunity to, and neighbors be able to have some maintenance of sight lines and being able to see some of the landscaping and things at the front. And finally, approval of this PD will revoke and replace the old conditional use, since the PD essentially covers the same conditions, so that will just take care of that. And that's it. Any questions or comments?
Okay. No, sir, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to open this for public comment.
Good morning, everybody. Justin Harden, one of the principals of the property. Just wanted to see if you guys had any questions for me. All right, thanks. Have a good one.
Thank you. Any further public comment?
Just want to note for the record that I think Luke has recused himself.
I just noticed that. Okay, so Luke Urick has recused himself. Thank you. We're going to close public comment and open for discussion. With the commission.
Motion to approve as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve as presented and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Be 5-0. Do we need to get Mr. Urick back in? Okay. Start with conditional uses. The Planning Commission has final authority for approval. Appeals may be directed to City Council. CU 2109, which is located at 406 West 49th Street, a request for approval of a conditional use for a short-term rental in a ranch and estate zoning district located at 406 West 49th Street.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
This is as you indicated, a conditional use, 417 West 49th Street. It is for a short-term rental in this area. Since this is ranch and estates, the acreage on this is almost a full acre. The applicants recently purchased the home and they remodeled the home. They lived directly across the street from the home, and when it came up, they definitely saw the opportunity and wanted to purchase that piece of property. It does meet all of the parking requirements for the short-term rental requirements. It is 2 blocks from the fairgrounds, and that's important because the applicants are looking to rent it as a short-term rental for events that occur in the Coliseum or the fairgrounds area. This is in District 2, Mr. Thompson's district, and it's in the Riverside neighborhood. This is a close-up of the area, and as you can see, the house is towards the front, the parking is right off of the street, and then there's that long area in the back which can be used to have a couple of horses and a portable corral for the fairgrounds competition or some other kind of animals in the area. That is consistent with the neighborhood, with the rural character of the neighborhood. And as the notice went out and property owners called, they all were in support of that because they all live in that area, particularly because they like the ranch and estate lifestyle, but they're also very involved with animals in the area and the fairgrounds and everything that occurs over there, and they're well aware of what the need is when the rodeo comes to town. This is a picture of the house that they're just finishing up remodeling now. It is an older home. They essentially went in and redid the entire area. The rental is for a single family or about that number of people in it, so it's not a large rental in any way, shape, or form. This is a picture of part of the parking area, And the street, and you can see that it has the rural character on the street. It does not have curb and gutter. This was the notices that we sent out. Officially, we received none in opposition and none in support, but we got a number of phone calls of people who did support the application. As we were going through the rationalization of this, it was easy to see that there will be no change in the neighborhood character of the area. It does meet all of the short-term rental requirements. The surrounding neighborhood is very rural. There will be no change to the character of that. The community need, everyone voiced that I talked to at rodeo time and when there are other fairground events going on, there really is a need close in to the fairgrounds rather than having people have to go all around the city and board some of their animals, and this is a nice compromise. And there'll be no change to the development patterns. Staff is recommending approval of the conditional use for a short-term rental, subject to the following 6 conditions: that they maintain the 2 parking spaces that are required, that they register with the state of Texas and the city of San Angelo for the purpose of the hotel occupancy tax requirements and provide verification of that to the city. That there's no exterior evidence of it being a short-term rental. That they obtain a certificate of occupancy from the Building and Permits Division and also have the fire marshal do the inspection on the property as is required, and that will occur annually, and that they maintain in a manner consistent with all of the requirements in section 406 of the zoning ordinance. With that, are there any questions?
Any questions? No, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
Open for public discussion. Okay, we will close public comment and open for discussion up here.
Move to approve.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. All right, director's report, John.
Just a couple of things. First, I'd like to introduce Zach Rainbow. He is our new planning manager. So he is replacing Hillary Euchre, and so we're excited to have Zach on board. And secondly, and not so exciting news, this will be Sherry Bailey's last meeting. She is retiring, and so we are thankful for her service to the city, but we will miss her for sure.
Good for you. Congratulations.
That's all.
Okay, thank you. Congratulations, Sherry. We'll miss you. Absolutely. And Zach, what is your last name?
Rainbow.
Rainbow. Okay, that's what I thought he said, but I thought I was hearing things. Okay. It's nice to have a rainbow in the planning department. So our future meeting agenda and announcements, the next regular planned meeting of the Planning Commission is tentatively scheduled to begin at 9 a.m. on Monday, July 19th in this room. And adjournments. Anyone wish to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
Okay, all those in favor? Okay. Thank you. Meeting's adjourned at 9:40.